compromising the quality of air you and your family breathe.
Eesh.
Swiffer Heavy Duty Sweeper is the fast and easy way to clean your floors with ultra-thick pads that trap and lock dust before it gets in the air. Just a couple minutes a day.
And dust is gone.
Swiffer Heavy Duty Sweeper. Proud partner of the American Lung Association.
Hi, we're Comparion Insurance Agency. Right now you're thinking, Comparion? Never heard of them. We know. We also know that you have no idea that Comparion Insurance agents are local and provide expert advice. So to help it stick, we're going to say local agent 4 times in the next 15 seconds. Ready? Go. Our local agents know you and your community. Our local agents offer insurance from top carriers. Our local agents have minty fresh breath.
Find us at ComparionInsurance.com. Comparion Insurance Agency. Local agents. Expert advice.
And there's number 4.
I get a radio that's kind of possessed.
It's Coast to Coast AM overnight, every night.
You have a possessed radio?
Yeah.
WGNS Murfreesboro. The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Bill Krause on the Round Table on a wonderful, wonderful Thursday morning. Every day's a wonderful day. Every morning's a great morning. And we have a dear friend of ours. He actually is filling in for somebody who had to cancel out. But it's always a great pleasure, both personal and professionally, to have with us our friend, State Representative Mike Sparks. Yeah. Mike's certainly no stranger to this area, and Mike is here and there and everywhere. And he's totally responsive to the people not only of Rutherford County, but as an outstanding state representative. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
And let's get right to it. There will be a special session of the state legislature coming up in the latter or the middle part of August. In the middle part of August, and dealing with guns and safety, etc. And I noted that you have a particular proposal coming in as part of the effort to limit deaths from guns, limit accidents, etc. Tell us about it.
Yes, sir. And thanks for asking. Thanks for inviting me to come on the show.
Thank you for coming in.
Well, it about 2 years ago, I'd seen where Kyle Yorlett, a young musician, was killed with a stolen firearm. And I often talk about God wink moments, and it was like something told me to go to Kyle's funeral. I don't know if you ever had something like this happen. You call, check on a friend that you haven't talked to. You check on students. I know you're a very caring professor and you help your students. But Kyle Yorlett was 24 and shot to death, and 5 juveniles were charged. I met with the governor a couple weeks ago about this, and I shared this story with the governor. But my legislation basically is an incentive, economic incentive, for folks to invest in a gun safe, whether it's in their car or in your home or in your business. And you might not think, well, a 10% cut on gun safes, is that really going to make a difference? Well, you can ask Mark Brassfield, the owner of the Safe House. He was selling the heck out of some gun sales up to the last day that expired, because we would run it year to year, and the fiscal note is a little lower when you go year to year rather than permanent.
Sure.
So I had 2 pieces of legislation. One was permanent sales tax cut, which is a little tougher to get done because that gets in the millions of dollars that the state's going to forgo tax dollars. And the state, it's hard to get tax cuts passed. I know it. We got tax cuts coming up. The grocery tax cut, back to school tax cut. Those are great, and we have expanded on the grocery tax, which will help relieve some folks of this increased inflation on cost of food. But for some reason, the Senate, I was really disappointed in the Senate. They just didn't even, my understanding, they didn't even discuss the bill. So we kind of took, this is we're talking about guns this entire session. The nation is paying attention to Nashville, Tennessee. And all of a sudden, we're fixing to run it in committee. And then I find out the Senate, it's like dead in the Senate. Mm. So, we're scrambling and trying to find out what's going on, and really disappointed with lack of communication on the Senate side. No disrespect to Senator Don White or Shane Reeves, but they weren't carrying the bill. Another person was. And so the bill was dead for the year. And Dr. Krause, I mean, I try to be a Christian, but I'll be honest, I drop some profanity, and my late mother would be very disappointed. But the General Assembly will make a man want to cuss. And anybody that served in the General Assembly, guarantee you, would know what I'm talking about, whether it's John Hood or Joe Carr or Rick Womack and others that have served up there. But sometimes I think God's got a plan. I was telling my Sunday school class that when I see weird things happen, usually God's at work. And my Sunday school class, they're...
Do you believe God has a sense of humor?
Well, I think so. He's used me. I guarantee you he's got a sense of humor. Because one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians verse 27, that God will use the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and the weak to shame the strong. So really, it was an opportunity. Even though it failed, God opened another bigger door, which was, meeting with the governor. And then I've got my psych bed bill. That's another piece of legislation on mental health that kind of got a little railroaded, pushed off to next year. And that's okay. I kind of understand where the hospital association is coming from. But for me to go to Kyle Yorlet's funeral, and I was sitting there at his funeral, this guy's got his whole life ahead of him, and his family's mourning, his sisters are mourning, girlfriend's mourning at the funeral. I see it. And what people don't realize is those young kids who killed Kyle Yorlet with a stolen gun. Now, no one's got mad at me for saying this, but if that gun would have been locked up, Kyle Yorlet would be alive today, and the taxpayers would probably save $400,000 because we wouldn't have to incarcerate those young people. Now, would they have stolen another gun, killed somebody else? Maybe so. But if that gun would have been locked up, Kyle Yorlet would be alive today. But the weird synchronicity, I call them God wink moments, is right after I'm at that funeral, I get asked to carry this bill.
Wow.
It was really, and I thought, well, what's happened with this bill? And I called Tennessee Firearms Association. I called some people. They're John. I don't know if you know John Harris. And I called John. John said, Mike, we've been trying to pass that bill for about 3 or 4 years. It's just never passed. And then I heard Mark Brassfield, the owner of the Safe House on 99.7, his advertising commercial. A lot of people have heard commercials, and they're pretty hard hitting. And I called him. I said, you got any advice? He said, well, they've done a terrible job presenting the bill. I said, well, you come up and help me present it. He says, well, it looks a little self-serving. I said, well, let me tell you, half the people in Nashville are self-serving. That's why they're there. They're lobbying for more money. Some are lobbying for tax increases. I've seen some nefarious things going on this year, very nefarious. It's a word I've learned to use up there, sadly. But I got a nice phone call yesterday after meeting with the governor, because he was like, Mike, I like your legislation. Go run that. It's great legislation. I said, no, sir, I want you to carry. I want you on both bills. They did call me on the gun safe bill. That's going to be part of his legislative agenda at special session. Now, they didn't say anything about the psych bed bill, but also didn't press it. That one's going to need some work.
Discuss the mental health bill.
Yeah, that
what
bill.
What does it ultimately attempt to achieve?
Well, if folks want to look it up, if I'm not mistaken, it's House Bill 827. 827, and Shane Reeves is the sponsor of that bill. Speaking of other weird God wink moments, it's another strange coincidence. The Secretary of State, Trey Hargett, and myself were visiting Stonecrest Hospital, and we had visited Smyrna Ready Mix, and we visited the classic car place in my district, Ingram Book Company, Lightning Source. I don't know if you've ever been over there, but where they print the books on demand, pretty fascinating. I mean, like one sheet of paper, one roll of paper is 3 miles long.
Right.
So it's pretty cool stuff they're doing at Ingram Book Company. So we're in the conference room with Lou Caputo, and I hope Lou doesn't mind me sharing this. But he's telling Trey Hargett and I, he says, our psych bed bills, we added on 16 beds a few years ago. He said, every one of them's full.
Wow.
And it's mental health. Most of it's mental health. And they had a bad episode I won't share on the radio.
Details, right?
Yeah, but he may not want me to share that part. But it was pretty, I guess you say horrific.
Mind-boggling.
Yes, and here's what he says to me. He says, Mike, we got to have relief. We got to have relief. Well, then all of a sudden I get asked to carry this bill, House Bill 827, which really requires what's called the HERT system, which is updating the portal online where they have openings like Trust Point, Rolling Hills, those areas, those psych bed bills. But the HERT system also applies to other hospitals, whether it's bills, openings for for children and infants and whatnot. But we run that bill. We thought the hospitals were okay with it, Tennessee Hospital Association, and because we amended it where they only have to update it once a day. We're asking for twice a day. They, at the time, they were okay with once a day. But the mental health experts across the state, they have a collaboration that comes together. And they recommended this is one tool in the toolbox. It's not the main tool, but it's one of the tools that we can do to help get relief to these ERs. I don't know if you've been to ER lately.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we were in Murfreesboro. I was with my mom there about 3 years ago. She passed in December, and she was ready to leave this world, no doubt. But I was in there, and Butch Campbell was in there, the chairman of the school board, and with his wife. I got there about 10:45, and I think Butch's wife got there, I think, at 10. It was a madhouse at St. Thomas over here. And we finally got placed with my mom at Trust Point at 7:30 that night. No disrespect, Trust Point, and no disrespect to the ER nurses. My heart goes out to them. But we have a serious situation when it comes to what they call ER, emergency room boarding, and we've got to find a way. But it gets back to workforce development, sir. I mean, we've got a serious problem. So I understand why the hospitals are pushing back. But, we need folks like your daughter, Jennifer Krause. I think Ben Hall has called me about this bill. He's running some series on mental health. I think he's airing something tonight. May not be specific to my bill. But that's where a journalist has influence.
But, it's really interesting to try to define, and I want to be sure, and I totally join you in the criticalness of mental health. But you have to go way back to the core and the roots. I had an experience this past week. I've been doing workshops in the inner city in Nashville, and had a small group of youngsters, 6 to 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I had them writing, and I said, I want you to write, where do you want to be 5 years from now? This is to a little child. What do you want to be doing 10 years from now? And a little girl wrote back, she said, I hope I'm alive tomorrow.
Wow.
And because of the violence, because of the crime, because of the deaths, the killings that she's experienced in her neighborhood, and a baby
yes.
saying, I hope I live tomorrow. And that becomes the real core issue. And whether mental illness or whether trauma, whatever else it may be, grows and is nurtured by an environment, we really have to find, and I can't sit here and just say there's cures and there's answers, successes to dealing with our communities, but we really have to find a way.
Yes.
And we were talking earlier off the air, and we were talking about maybe there's a role of people helping other people, families helping other people.
Yes.
We got a call in for you?
Yes. I've got the principal. I was telling you about we were talking about mentoring.
Why don't we do this right now? Well, why don't we take a break first, and then after the break, I want you to introduce your guest.
Yes.
We'll be right back. We're with State Representative Mike Sparks, and he's got a special guest with a special event that he'll be sharing with us right after we come back.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
There's a lot of people out there talking about testosterone. You hear about treatment centers everywhere. But do your homework and go to a provider that you can trust, one that's been doing it for years. I recommend Low T Center on Medical Center Parkway in Murfreesboro. That's where I get my levels checked. At Low T Center, they make it quick and easy. Walk in, take a simple blood test, and then with their on-site lab, you get the results in 25 minutes. If you've been feeling tired, grumpy, weight gain, or loss of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone levels. Low T Center's not like a typical doctor's office where you have to wait a long time to see the doctor. Low T Center is concierge medicine exclusively for men. They have affordable and convenient options, including physician-monitored self-inject treatments that ship directly to your home each month. No need to drive to the center for weekly visits. Right now at Low T Center, it's only $25 to get your testosterone level tested. So what are you waiting for? Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment online. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Hi, this is Bob Cornell, pastor of Covenant Church right here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The answer that you've been looking for is found in Jesus and what he accomplished at the cross. You see, Jesus changes lives from the inside out. We would love for you to join us at Covenant Church, located at 1124 Brinkley Ave right here in Murfreesboro. We have services Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. You can learn more about us at our Cornell Ministries YouTube channel. We want you to grow in Christ at Covenant Church.
It's Good Neighbor Events, brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control, Cardinal Realty Solutions, and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Now, WGNS Good Neighbor Events. This weekend is when you really save money. It's a sales tax-free weekend. No sales tax on clothing that's $100 or less per item. That's all this weekend, such as shirts, pants, socks, shoes, dresses, things of that sort. And then school and art supplies that are $100 or less per item, and computers as well as laptop computers that are $1,500 or less per item. No sales tax on any of those items this weekend in Tennessee. A day after that, when August rolls in, tax-free on many purchases at groceries and restaurants. No alcohol included. That sales tax-free period on food is for 3 months, August, September, and October. So some big savings ahead. And this is the final weekend for the Center for the Arts production of Peter Pan. The production is at MTSU's Tucker Theater. For information, get with the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro. And from News Radio WGNS, those are Good Neighbor Events.
Good Neighbor weather. Mostly sunny skies here this afternoon. We'll see high in the mid-90s. For tonight, mostly clear and a low near 73. Friday, sunny high of 99. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 76.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Hello there again, Bill Krause on the Roundtable on a wonderful Thursday morning, having a delightful morning visit with our state representative, Mike Sparks. And just before we went off the air, we specifically were talking about perhaps the need to create mentors and create a support system. And you have a special guest that you invited this morning.
Yep.
And why don't you introduce her, and we will have a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, Smyrna Principal Jason Eaton has been on hold with us. Principal Eaton, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Thank you.
I know you're swamped this morning. Thank you for the short notice I gave you to call in. You've got a big event this Thursday. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, we are very excited here at Smyrna Primary. On Thursday, August 3rd, we are having an anniversary celebration, a big milestone. We are celebrating 60 years of Smyrna Primary as part of the Smyrna community.
Yes. Well, I know you were telling me the other day, we were talking, Mayor Reed taught there, Bo Washington taught there. A lot of folks from Rutherford County remember Bo Washington. I think she was there 40 years. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yes, she was real involved with the African American Heritage Society, and I remember we were talking this week, you and I, about the mentorship. There used to be a mentorship. The mayor's dad, Coon Victor, used to come over there. I can remember going over there when I was in my late 20s. I was telling Dr. Krause, because he brought up mentoring, something he does, and I said, it didn't seem like I see a lot of that with the school system as much as I used to when I was younger, but I know you may not want to get into so much of that, but I know you've got some new ideas, and a fresh start at Smyrna Primary. It's a great school that connects with folks in the Smyrna Laverne community.
Absolutely. And we talked yesterday, and I agree that mentorship is huge, and especially for a school like Smyrna Primary. We are a Title I school, and so we serve students of poverty. We serve students of all varieties across Smyrna, and we believe that mentorship is huge. And so we are starting the mentorship process in our school with something this year. We're going to do book buddies with our older students, going and reading with our younger students and creating those relationships.
Yes.
And then another thing we do here at Smyrna Primary is we have our house system. And so our students, from the time they come in kindergarten or whenever they enroll at Smyrna Primary, they are sorted into a house, and they are part of one of our 4 big houses with kids made up, faculty, staff, all across our school. And we come together once a month and we celebrate our successes and milestones that we meet. And when we do that, they are there with a 5th grader with one of our kindergartners.
Yes.
And they're able to celebrate each other. And so to me, that's important because it gives those 5th graders, those 4th graders, that opportunity to be those role models or those mentors to the younger.
Yes.
I would, let's go back to the anniversary. Tell us about the anniversary, because I'm imagining that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of alumnus from your school over the past 6 decades who would be interested and might want to return back to the old grade school.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would love to have as many here. So our event is on Thursday, August 3rd.
A week from today.
Yes. It starts at 5 p.m. And we are combining this with our back-to-school bash. So our current students are coming. They're meeting their teachers. We have lots of activities. We actually even have a dunking booth where they can come and dunk me, their principal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you can come, you can pay for some balls, throw those balls and try to dunk myself or our assistant principal, Ms. Hale, throughout the evening. We've got food trucks here, barbecue, Kona ice. We've got opportunities for that. We've got chances for parents to enroll in some programs they need throughout the year. But at 6 o'clock, we're going to pause everything, and we're going to come together at the front of the school, and we are going to have a celebration where we celebrate the 60 years of Smyrna Primary, but we're also not only going to celebrate, but we're going to look to the future and dream about what the future has for us.
Amen.
What, I'm going to catch you off guard, which teacher do you currently have on staff who has the longest service at the school?
Well, it's actually not a teacher.
Okay.
We have a custodian at our school,
Yes.
Mr. Danny Judd. He was a student at Smyrna Primary.
Wow.
As soon as he graduated from high school, he came back and joined us as a custodian, and he has been here for about 40 years,
Wow.
and he's now our lead custodian.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Are you inviting or an invitation going out to former teachers who want to come back?
Absolutely. We've reached out to some teachers. We've reached out to our central office staff. We've reached out to alumni. We've put stuff out on Facebook, the Smyrna government. We would love to have anyone who's been involved in Smyrna Primary of any capacity, whether you've taught, whether you've been a teacher, maybe you've been a parent of a past student. We would love to see you here to celebrate. And we are having an alumni check-in table when you arrive, so that way we can go ahead and get your name. We can go ahead and figure out when were you here and label that, because I think it's going to be really fun at that ceremony to see the wide variety of people and what they've gone on to do in their lives.
Your address is?
We are 200 Walnut Street. We are going to have parking. Our front parking lot is going to be shut off because that's where everything's going to take place. But we do have parking at the back of the building. We have parking next door at the middle school and at the ESL center next door.
Are you the oldest primary school in Smyrna?
We are, I believe so, yes. I can't answer that 100%, but I do know, like I know Smyrna Elementary's down the road. They just celebrated 40 years. I'm not sure about Thurman Francis.
Yeah. Let me ask you, is there a wish list that if parents want to bring, alumni want to bring over, whether it's items that teachers may need, whether it's paper, pencils, bottled water. Is there any wish list out there that folks can share on Facebook and bring things to the teachers?
I don't have a specific one. A lot of our teachers have individual wish lists, but I can tell you that our biggest need for our students is school supplies.
Yes.
As the year goes, and teachers run low on pencils, and teachers run low on expo markers, and those types of things that we might take for granted. Our teachers are going out and spending their own money on those. So those types of things would be absolutely, our teachers would appreciate that.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we are hoping it will be a great event, and I will be looking forward if you would feed back to us what are some of the dreams and aspirations that the folks who are contributing for the next 60 years are looking for.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Principal Eaton.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys, and I hope that I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. We'll have that. You're going to send the information over for the proclamation, correct?
I am. I'm going to send that, I hope, by the end of today.
Okay, sounds great, sir.
Have a wonderful event.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mike, let's get back to state of the affairs.
Yes.
Affairs of state. Maybe that's a little bit better.
Which bill were we talking about? The mental health bill?
We're on mental health, and then I want to switch into education.
Yeah. But going back on the mental health bill, I had pushback from the Hospital Association. I'm sure they're probably listening. They probably have a lobbyist listening right now. But one thing about politics, there's give and take, and I try to always put myself in other people's position. And it sounds great. We just update this system, and I think it does need to be updated. A lot of folks feel like some groups are slow walking the process. I mean, there's some talk out there that some of these groups are picking and choosing folks with insurance that don't have insurance, and they may want to select those that do have insurance and not take indigent folks. But if that's the case, let's identify that and let's put money in the budget to help address that. But here's something I'm seeing that's alarming, Dr. Krause. Everyone, we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
People don't want to make this a Democrat-Republican issue.
No, it's all.
Man, this is an American issue. And I've seen the mental health aspect in my own family. I've seen the need, with my mother. They remember my mother being at Trust Point. She did the little ECT scan, and my mother, she's from Scotland, so people remember her accent. And they treated her really good, and the ECT scan really helped her. But we're having such a shortage of nurses, like we're having a shortage of teachers, and other folks that want to work. We've got another generation coming up that I'll argue, Dr. Krause, doesn't have the work ethic that your generation did or my generation did, and not many nurses want to go into behavioral health. My daughter-in-law is a Vanderbilt nurse and used to be at St. Thomas as well. She was a traveling nurse and making good money. But I said something to her. I said, "Boy, you could really do good if you went into behavioral health." She said, "No way." Because like these guys, the manager, the director at the hospital was saying, who wants to be poked on, prodded on, spit on, assaulted? And it's a serious issue when we're going to have a shortage of nurses, not only a shortage of teachers that we're seeing, but even the teachers. It goes back to mental health, student behavior. And you mentioned earlier when you and I were talking about some of the mentorship that you're doing and what you're seeing with young people.
Absolutely. And you also talked the other topic of homelessness, and so much of the homelessness issue is dealing with mental health. And, a lot of the crime that may be resulting from a homeless situation, mental health is the number one core there.
Yes, it is. And, I'm reminded of a quote that I really like by Alex de Tocqueville. I don't know if folks have studied Alex de Tocqueville.
One of the great philosophers that were founding of this country.
Yes, and he says, liberty cannot be established without morality, nor morality without faith. Now, some academics may disagree with that, but I'm telling you, Dr. Krause, more legislation, more regulation, more taxes, more fees is not the way to solve the problems we're facing. We really are facing a moral crisis in this country. Some of that, I'll argue, and you may disagree with me, I think some of that's argued by the media. I think it's fueled by some in the media, not all in the media. Some of the legislation I just mentioned, now Ben Hall is covering the mental health and doing a great job. Just this morning, I seen where they covered the little young lady that lost her legs
in St. Louis.
in the accident, and I appreciate that reporter, and you could tell the reporter is a Christian because she talked about the little girl got baptized.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was part of that. And in fact, I'm going to call Channel 5 later today and just compliment them for even
acknowledging
and
that, recognizing.
I think some may not want to acknowledge faith.
But it goes
Janae Edmondson.
Okay, it goes one step further. I think in life you have to deal both with your head and your heart, and your head for logic and your heart for feeling, and you've got to balance the two together. And whether it's legislation from the state or a city or national politic, whether it's a teacher or whether it's a minister, whether it's a medical professional, whether it's an attorney, you have to deal with the logic of your head, but you have to deal with the feelings and sensitivity of your heart. No, I agree, and I won't just blanket the media. The media reflects what the public consent or the public feeling may be. It influences the public, no question.
Yes.
If you hear bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news, you ultimately believe it's all bad news. It's kind of interesting. Our population, since the time I was a young man, our population has tripled in the United States. Yet the amount of time relating to news is the same. So if you have a bad population, criminal justice people will say about 4% of the population, just for some strange reason, was born bad, and you're reporting on their activities, and you have 1/3 of the time to report on news, you're going to spend less and less time on the good, positive news, and more time on the headline news.
Yes.
So it's just a tragedy. What's the world of education right now as far as the state legislature is concerned?
Well, I had when I get feedback from teachers, they get frustrated with lack of accountability with student behavior. That's one of the main issues that I hear. And if there's any teachers listening, which I know they're very busy preparing, just like the good principal that called in. But it is a different time today. I mean, I had a teacher tell me they need to bring back discipline, bring back paddling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may disagree.
I don't.
So,
I don't know if I want to start paddling college students.
I know it's well, but there's got to be accountability, and there's got to be consequences for bad behavior. I mean, I've got paddled. I bet I have the record for any lawmaker getting paddled.
Wow.
But here's the interesting. You'd find this interesting. Now, I don't have a psychology background. I mean, I've had a few classes, but everyone that paddled me were my favorite teachers.
Because you respected them, and respect is a key component.
I remember Mr. Bailey. I spit in this trash can in the 9th grade, Thurman Francis. He was doing foundry, the clay, and I mean, what are the odds? I just happened to spit in the trash can. It's a big trash can that was full of clay, and he says, "Come here, everyone." It was all guys. He says, "Let me give you a demonstration." And he puts his hand in that trash can, and he grabbed some dirt. And what's the odds of him grabbing the area that I spit at? And he looks, he goes, "Who done this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "I did it," and I was honest. And he said, "You could have blown." He would still. We went to school. We went to church together.
Mm-hmm.
I went to his funeral. He was buried over there at Roselawn. Went to his funeral 2 years ago. His widow Margaret Edmondson was there, and other family members. And his son was a teacher too, just retired. And he made me do 500 write-offs. Was like, what was it? I will not spit in the trash can. I will not spit in the trash can.
500 times.
And I would see him at church, and I'm like, I got carpal tunnel from all those write-offs. I'd as soon took a paddling. Just bust my tail and let me move on rather than be in the class. And then he set it up there where all the students had to see it for like a week. So I got kidded on that. But I hear teachers complain about student behavior, lack of accountability. And once they hit the real world, you got to show up for work on time. You've got to put in some effort. You've got to pay your bills. You're going to have a checking account. You've got to have car insurance. You've got to have a driver's license. And we've got to teach responsibility. But I did have a nice text from another teacher that said, "Thank you for the pay raise." Mm-hmm. I hope Phil Williams will tell. You think Phil Williams will talk about the pay raise for teachers?
I don't think there's an investigative part in that.
Well, I guarantee you, if it's anything to do with race or something, Phil is all over it. But he's not about healing.
Well, I think that's not what attracts the attention.
But that's sad.
I used to
That's
always
sad.
say, if you're half asleep on your couch and the news is coming on at 10 o'clock, and you're, well, I should say 90% asleep, and you hear the headline teaser, dog bites man. You're not going to wake up to
what
that.
the heck?
But then if you hear man bites dog, what's
Yeah.
that all about?
Yes.
So headline teaser, headline stories. Remember, the media is a business, and the
But
media.
that's sad.
Oh,
That's sad when, let's take case in point, and I'll
Sure.
challenge Phil Williams. Let your daughter know that I'm talking about him on the radio. And I like Phil Williams. He graduated MTSU, same school of journalism I'm going to, the John Bragg building over there, and John Bragg was well respected, that folks that knew him. Powerful figure, by the way, powerful figure in Nashville. I mean, that's why we have MTSU, many of the buildings we have today, and John Bragg Highway. But here's what's sad. When corporate sponsorships check into bankruptcy, advance finance, all these payday loans that are 300 to 320%.
Yeah, it's
If
unbelievable.
they've bought WTVF, if they bought WKRN, if they've bought WSMV, if they've bought Fox News, if they've bought Gannett, they don't buy WGNS, I promise you.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear those commercials on this. This station right here can't be bought. That's why you're going to get truth. I don't think you're going to, you when you have corporate folks, like I just was kidding you about handing you a 20 for the kind words, and you wouldn't even take it.
No,
I want you to put it
absolutely.
towards students. You wouldn't take it because you have ethics. But when the media is bought and paid for by corporate sponsorships.
Well, and you also have to worry about politics being bought and paid
Well, they
for.
are. They are. You know, and well, I say they are. There's it's highly influential. But you know how much? Let me tell you. You know how much money those title ponds donate to me? Zero. They can kiss my tail. And here's the thing about it: all these pastors in this community across this state are silent. And one of the quotes I like by Edmund Burke, if you ever studied Burke, outspoken
Very
British
conservative
lawmaker.
philosopher.
He said, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And I see a lot of good people. They're in the church pews this Sunday, but they're doing nothing about it. And some of these are my own members now.
Well, you literally have to go back to the point and say, to what point will a person stand up when they may be attacked? Their family may be attacked.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I always talk about young men and young women getting involved in politics. And you may run for a real bitter election, and you may have a bitter opponent. That opponent is throwing the mud and throwing the concrete and so forth. You have big shoulders, you can take it. But what happens if you have a little child who's in the second grade,
happened, yeah.
and your child starts getting ridiculed by his fellow students in the second grade because his dad is a real monster, according to the media and what have you. So that's one reason why a lot of people will stay out of politics. It's not them, it's their family.
Well, you teach political science.
That's my whole
and
commitment.
I've taken your class.
Absolutely, and you were a good student, great student.
Well, I missed a few. I had to campaign. I was juggling a campaign, a nasty campaign, by the way.
I can recall.
But I remember there was a little black girl in your class, and her and I just hit it off. And
absolutely.
all the students were just great to deal with, you know.
Well, we'll be right back. We have to take a break right now, and we'll be concluding with a wonderful, dynamic, innovative, and exciting discussion with State Representative Mike Sparks.
Hi, this is Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. You might know me as the voice of the Blue Raiders, but I want to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Whether you're buying or selling, it's time to choose Chip. Do you have a growing family and need to upsize? Are you an empty nester now and need to downsize? Are you thinking of selling your current home but just worried you can't find something else? Well, it's time to choose Chip. I'm looking to be your trusted advisor in real estate. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
French's, the name to trust. French's, depend on us. French's, a great selection too. We take pride in pleasing you. Get brand names at a lower price. The French family really treats you nice. It makes good sense to shop at French's. French's Shoes and
That's French's Shoes and Boots, 1837 South Church Street in Murfreesboro.
This is Dr. David Morris with Magnolia Medical Center. Do you suffer from peripheral neuropathy in your hands or feet, burning pain, balance problems, and decreased quality of life? Magnolia Medical Center can help.
Magnolia Medical Center in Murfreesboro. Online at magnoliamedicalcenters.com.
Here at Bud's Tire, we make buying Michelin tires simpler. I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We offer a straightforward approach to service, including nationwide warranties with every purchase. Stop in today to see our full lineup of Michelin and BF Goodrich tires. For whatever you drive, Michelin and BF Goodrich have a tire to fit any need. Bud's Tire Pros, hassle-free, guaranteed. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
We're visiting with Jennifer Sanchez, manager of Steered Straight 2 Furniture and Thrift at 1007 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
You're not just walking into just a big warehouse. You're walking into rooms. We've got a media room. We've got a boutique room. We've got a vintage room, a furniture area, kitchen, all that.
Steered Straight 2 Furniture and Thrift.
Every day you go in there, I promise you it's changing.
Steered Straight 2 Furniture and Thrift, 1007 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Online at steeredstraightthriftstore.org.
This is Pastor Nikki Ajapong, the lead pastor of Holy Hill Chapel in Murfreesboro.
Hear our sermons on WGNS every Sunday night at 7:30.
Everyday life, never take it for granted.
Visit holyhillchapeltn.org to hear our podcast.
It's a blessing.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Krause once again in our third and final segment on the Roundtable on a beautiful Thursday morning. And I hope you're all doing great. I hope you all are happy. I hope you all have a very positive attitude. A lot of challenges, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. But the only way we can combat them, the only way we can get better is smile, have a positive attitude, know that the world is going to survive and prosper. Mike, you were telling me earlier about you met with some of the parents from Covenant.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
Well, they a young lady called me up, emailed me this week and asked if I'd go. I guess it was Tuesday, and I just happened to check my emails, and I said, well, I've got an opening tomorrow at 10, and what they're doing, they're inviting some parents of Covenant school children. Remember the Covenant school shooting in
March?
So, March. Folks may have
time
know
has
what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But she invited me to come up, and they prayed with me, and I believe in the power of prayer. And there was Bob Freeman. Now Bob Freeman's a Democrat. He spoke up for my gun safe bill.
Former candidate for mayor.
Yep, he spoke up for my gun safe bill. And
is this the father or the son?
Well, the son
the son. His father ran for mayor in
I think
Nashville.
he'll run for mayor in 4 years. Bob Freeman will. But Bob's one of them guys. He's a hunter. He believes in the Constitution. So we went up, and I think they invited some others, and they didn't show up for some reason. Maybe they had something else going on. But we were right outside the governor's office. The pastor of Covenant Church said, "Do you mind if we lay hands on you?" And I said, well, do you mind if I start speaking in tongues while you're doing it? And I just messing with him. And I said, no, man, I believe in that. I was raised up with a strong mother of faith at St. Rose Church and a Catholic church. And I believe in the power of prayer and faith. And I'll argue that the gospel, the word of Jesus Christ, is the best tool in the toolbox to turn this country around. But Phil Williams is not going to tell that story, by the way.
We want to leave Phil alone.
Leave Phil out. But we've got to get back. Like, I just read a DNJ article, and it wasn't by Scott Broden. It was by somebody else. Let me see if I can just call his name out. Cecil Joyce. I'm looking through there, talking about Janae Edmondson that lost both of her legs. Channel 5 talked about her being baptized. How come he didn't mention faith? How come he didn't mention the baptism in here? Why would he leave that out? The Gannett's the worst when it comes to blocking faith. I've witnessed it. I've seen a black church locked out of their own church in Laverne by government. It was years back. It was years ago, about 6-7 years ago. And the DNJ turned a blind eye. It's the First Amendment issue. What if the churches need to start sponsoring, buying ads? Well, we're not going to cover your story until you pay us, just like the mafia. So that's what we got with corporate media. We've lost 2,000 newspapers the past 15 years.
And what will be the future of online being our news broadcaster?
One thing about WGNS, they just showed me there's a Democrat, the Democrats sent over a press release, and Brian will cover it. it's like, well, we're not going to cover it because they're Democrats. We're not going to cover it because it's Representative so-and-so who's outspoken. It's sad the times we're in, but people of faith need to start being bold. Don't back off. When we've got drag queens, drag kings, whatever you want to call them, trying to infiltrate our school system, trying to infiltrate nasty, perverted books in our school system, it may not be happening in Rutherford County, but it may be happening in other areas, Tennessee or Chicago or New York. We need to start standing up. Our pastors need to take a stand. Our school board members, our county commissioners, take a stand. Don't be afraid to lose the next election. Everybody's afraid of losing the next election because they get bad press. They're scared to death of Phil Williams. I guarantee you they're scared to death of Phil Williams.
I want to leave Phil alone.
Well, I'm sorry. But, Phil's a nice guy. But you know why Phil's so influential? Because he graduated from MTSU School of Journalism.
And so did so many others who are doing a great job.
And your daughter, one thing I like about Jennifer, folks may not know your daughter's Jennifer Krause, and I hope you're okay with me. Okay.
She may not be.
Well, she may not. But you know what? When you watch her segments, she's bringing some value to the table. Value. It's not a hit job because they don't like this Republican. It's not smashing some Christian organization. Jennifer, it has solutions, and that's what we need. I'm telling you, if we keep staying in this tribal Republican versus Democrat, I see some people that are full of hatred.
Yes.
I serve with some people that's full of hatred. They hate that person. I see some of that locally, and it's alarming,
yes,
Dr. Krause.
It is. I mean, when I specifically see and working in the outreach that I do in terms not only students in our area colleges, but in the streets and so forth, we have to get that cancer out of the people's feelings.
Tell the story about, what a principal, I think, told you what these kids need.
Well, actually, what it was, I've just had the wonderful, wonderful opportunity the last 6 weeks of working with youngsters in the inner cities of inner city of Nashville, building up their writing skills or communication skills, beginning with the age of 6 up to the age of 13.
Yes.
And it was a real shocker. And did I say this before? It was a real shocker that a little girl was responding to writing about the future. And she said, I hope I live tomorrow.
Yes.
That's my future.
Yeah.
So I was sharing this with another group of people, some pretty streetwise people. And they said, what the small child needs today are hugs. We have to hug them. And I thought, as a teacher, as a workshop leader, if I went and hugged these children, I'd be in violation of Section 1,
sadly.
Part 2 of code dealing with don't touch the student.
Yes.
And I certainly don't want to be touching the student. But it's kind of interesting. He said they're missing hugs. They're missing the human touch.
Yes.
And how do we pass the human touch? As we briefly talked earlier this morning, I would love to see the opportunity that millions of people, I would call them more grandparents. You talked about the pastors leading. I'm talking about the senior citizens. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have senior citizens become the adopted grandparent of a child in need, not taking away from the family, not taking away from the parental responsibility, not taking away from the love that the family may be offering this child, despite the fact that it may be a single mother who's working 3 jobs just to be sure they have a roof over their head and food on the table. But if there were volunteers that literally could take a young boy to the ball game and buy him a hot dog and Coca-Cola and popcorn and what have you, and create a mentor, not a mentor necessarily of learning, but a mentor of attitude improvement.
Yeah.
And we have to begin with the basics. And I see that so often. You mentioned teachers being very frustrated, primarily in the elementary schools and the middle schools, put it mildly. And literally, we have to start building confidence in oneself, confidence in one's future, confidence in one's country, confidence in one's community. And I cannot stress how important. I'm not so sure some of the best strategies we could use to do that. But, talking with you, Mike, and you bring a perspective in terms of the state legislature, and that perspective becomes very, very significant. So why don't you share that?
Well, I was telling you earlier, my assistant Marvin, he's a young African-American, and he's just an extraordinary young man. And we put together a roundtable, if you will, at Parkway Baptist Church, dealing with the area of the opioid and mental health. This was 3 years ago. And I will give the media a lot of credit. It was well covered. Judge Barry Tidwell was there, Dr. Brian Terry, Tennessee Mental Health Cooperative, both school superintendents, Dr. Linda Gilbert, the late Dr. Linda Gilbert, and Bill Spurlock attended. And then Mayor Kitchen, Don White, and some others attended. We had about 110 people there. Some parents came through, like one, I remember this African-American lady holding up a picture of her 19-year-old son. He took some kind of drug. It was laced with fentanyl, and he overdosed.
Wow.
And but here's what I asked, because, one thing about politics, you always got somebody that's the Debbie Downer. And I had somebody ask me a while back, well, what good came out of that whole meeting you put together? Okay. First of all, it was the first time that's ever been done in the north end of the county. Maybe Murfreesboro put together an opioid mental health discussion. So just bringing people together is the first step to solving the problem. But here's a letter that I got from the late Dr. Linda Gilbert. Remember, she passed away about 2 or 3 weeks after sending me this letter. But she attended the event, and I asked her, what's the silver bullet? What's the silver bullet? So here's the letter she wrote me before she died. She says, "Good evening. I apologize for being delayed in responding. Please thank Representative Sparks for reaching out. Yes, more funding for counselors would certainly help with the social-emotional issues we're seeing. Another area is social workers. They are vital in many school districts. We're not able to fund them. I also think it'd be beneficial for him and other legislators to talk with school superintendents about the issues we're seeing in very young children. The behaviors of our 6 to 9 year olds are like nothing we have ever seen before." Let me repeat that. Mm-hmm. The behaviors of our 6 to 9 year olds are like nothing we've ever seen before. They are inordinately disruptive. I thought that was an interesting terminology. And aggressive. And while we're bringing all our resources into play, there's no place for these children to be assessed and treated. I feel very good about what the Department of Education is trying to accomplish in this area, with emphasis on the whole child, Dr. Krause. She says, "I'm hopeful that Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse will work alongside them to help address the upper tier children for whom there seems to be no answers."
Wow. And
she died about 2 weeks after. But here's what really, and I don't want to use profanity on the radio, but here's what really irritates the HELL out of me. When I see other lawmakers who would say, "Oh, we don't need more counselors. Oh, we don't need more social work." I've had that happen, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, how many kids do you have? 0. Mm-hmm. How many classrooms have you been in? 0. How many teachers have you talked to? 0. I just had a young lady call me yesterday. I hope she don't mind me sharing her name. Lacey Bird is her dad's a friend of mine, Mac and Diane, the parents. And for some reason, the state of Tennessee is not honoring her graduate degree from Liberty University. I said, wait a second. Is Liberty University, the graduate program, is out of state? I said, isn't that a Christian college? I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Is it discriminatory? I hate to think that way, but here's the great thing about going to MTSU, studying communication, studying journalism. It makes you start to critical think. Well, what's going on with this biasness? And so hopefully I've sent an email to Dr. Sullivan and others and Frances Rosales on the school board to help look at her situation. But this is a 50-year educator who is sounding the alarm. If we don't get a hold of this, our prison budget's already doubled since I got elected. Wow. You know how many lobbyists there are for that, by the way?
No.
0.
Zero.
Ain't nobody lobbying saying, "Sparks, we got to get a hold of the fatherless rate," which is 70% in some communities. "Sparks, we've got to help elderly grandparents that are raising these young people."
7 million grandparents in the United States today are raising children.
We got to do something about the 8,500 kids in DCS child custody. Yes. You asked me earlier if I like the governor. I do like the governor. Mm-hmm. He's responsive. When I talked to him the other day about the 2 bills, I could see the look in that guy's eye where he was like, wow, because I shared some personal experience. I said, "Sir, I'm a state lawmaker, and I couldn't get help for a family member. What about all these other people?" Absolutely. And the governor looked at me like, just you could see the look in his eye that he cared. But we've got a great governor. You may not always agree with him, but he cares about education, cares about vocational schools, cares about mental health and more. We're lucky to have him.
There's a story that I can recall from last spring of a young lady in dual enrollment at Motlow, and this young lady was graduating from Laverne High School.
Yeah.
And they had the midterm question, which was also on your midterm. What would it take to get you involved in politics? And I saw that essay back, and she said, absolutely nothing. I hate people. I hate America.
Wow.
I hate my community. I hate my school.
Wow.
And I took that letter to the leadership of Motlow and said, is this a young lady that should be talked to?
Yeah, needs some
this is a young
counseling.
lady that is, she got
Well, there's
some
hurts
major
and
issues.
hang-ups. Yeah, and a lot of that, if you go back and look, I see where that singer passed away last night, the Irish singer. I forgot her.
Yes.
Odell or O'Connell or something. And she was criticizing the Pope and the Catholic Church. Well, I grew up Catholic. I'm in the Baptist Church now. But you go back, most people with hurts and hang-ups, there's some kind of abuse in their background.
Yes.
They turn to drugs and alcohol. That girl's got a lot of hurts, but that's where a counselor, rather not come to say, I'm a counselor, meet with me, just somebody that comes on and puts their arm around them. When Mr. Rakes busted my tail
See,
back
I
in
would
the
change
day,
the nomenclature. I would change the nomenclature. Counselor looks like
Yes.
somebody who's
I'm
looking
with
on
you,
the book.
brother.
I would say, let's establish a friend.
Yes.
A friend on campus. You want to talk to your friend. I mean, you know, it sounds a little hokey, but a friend.
Yes.
So it isn't somebody, this is going to be the person.
Well, that's like that. Look at these school shooters.
Oh.
They're isolated. They've been bullied. There's something going on. So how do we intervene? There's got to be something that somebody says, hey, man, something's not right about so-and-so. People were saying that about that shooter at the Covenant.
Yep.
You know, people that said it, but where do you go to turn? One thing about Mr. Rakes, a lot of us in Smyrna had Mr. Rakes. He even patted my wife. I mean, he patted my son. I think he patted my father-in-law.
He may be in heaven paddling.
He loved paddling. But here's what he done after he paddled me. I was walking down the hall one day. He put his arm around my shoulder. We're walking. Speaking of hugs, he said, Mike, I've always heard you're a very polite young man. Well, you know what that did? That made me be more polite.
You were 5 steps above.
Yes, but my dad was military, so I knew to be
yes,
polite,
sir,
you better
no,
be
ma'am.
polite.
Right.
Yes.
Mike, it's been always a pleasure. I'm sure you got some attention of some of our listeners and some of the comments, but that's what radio's for. That's what free speech is for. That's what the First Amendment is for.
Yes, sir.
Keep up the great work. Keep up your attitude, your faith, your direction, and your focus. Come back and see us
Yes, sir.
soon.
Thank you.
This is Bill Krause on the Roundtable. See you next Thursday.